Okay, so in this video we're going to look at simplifying exponential expressions, and you have 6 rules. So I've got the rules in your notes. Make sure you print those notes out and then you can fill in and go along with me as we go on. Alright, so our first rule for simplifying our exponents is the product rule, and it says if you're multiplying the same base, then what you can do is add your exponents. So let me fit one over here. If I was doing x to the third times x to the fifth, as long as it's the same base and they're both x's, what you can do is add your exponents. So we would say 3 plus 5 is 8. Okay. Alright, so let's do this first example. It's got x's and y's, and then it's got some numbers in the front. So what you want to do first is multiply those coefficients, negative 2 times 3, and we would get negative 6. Okay, and then you want to add your exponents on your x's. Remember, that's an understood 1. So on the x I have 1 plus 2, so I get x to the third. And on the y I have 5 plus 4, so I get y to the ninth. So multiply those numbers in front and add up your x's and y's. Alright, and then we have the quotient rule, and it says if you are dividing the same base, what you can do is subtract your exponents, and it's always the top one minus the bottom one. So for example, if I had x to the 6th over x to the 4th, okay, what I would do is subtract them, x to the 6 minus 4, and get x squared. So if we were to do this one, okay, well, I guess I don't need that right there. Divide your numbers first. So what is 36? Divide your numbers. 36 divided by 6 gives me 6. Alright, and if we subtract our x's, we get 10 minus 4. If we subtract our y's, we get 5 minus, again, that's an understood 1. So we would get 6, x to the 6th, y to the 4th. Alright, our third rule is a zero exponent rule, and it says anything raised to the 0 power is equal to 1. So when I see this one, 3 to the 0 power, 3 to the 0 power equals 1. Okay, now the next two are trying to be tricky. Okay, if you see those parentheses thrown in, like that's number 4 and then number 5, what's the difference in the way I wrote those? Okay, what's going to be those parentheses? So if the 0 is on those parentheses, it means everything inside equals 1. Okay. The difference is that this one, only the 3 is raised to the 0 power. There's no parentheses grabbing that negative sign. So this negative has to carry over in my answer. Okay, so this one is negative, and then 3 to the 0 is 1. So make sure you watch for the difference of those. If you see those parentheses, the whole thing's going to equal 1. But if there's no parentheses grabbing the negative out front, that negative was going to carry into your answer. Okay. Then we have the negative exponent rule, and we can't leave negative exponents. So if you have one, what you want to do is you move it. If you move it across this bar, okay, if the negative exponent starts off on the top, the minute you move it across the bar, it changes signs. And if it starts off on the bottom like here, the minute you move it up to the top, the sign of the exponent changes. So we can't have these negative exponents in our answers. We always want to fix it. So let's see like this one. 6 to the negative 2. Well, right now it's understood over 1. It's on the top. So to fix it, I pick it up, base and power, and move it to the bottom. And you have to put something on top. So we put 1. And then we can simplify that a little further. 1 over, what is 6 squared? It is 36. Okay. If I look at number 7, I can't put the x and the y together. They're not the same base. So the only thing wrong with it is that negative exponent. Well, again, it's understood over 1. So you need to fix it. Well, who has the negative exponent? Just the x. Okay, so just the x moves. So I pick up that x to the negative 5 and move it to the bottom and make it positive 5. And I leave that y to the 6 alone. So this one had no math. It was just kind of fix your answer to where it's okay. So you can't have those negative exponents, so always fix them. Okay. Alright, our next rule is the 5th rule, which is the power rule. It says if you're raising a base to a power to another power, what you do is you multiply. You multiply your exponents. So, for example, if I gave you x to the 4th to the 5th, As long as that one power is outside the parenthesis, you're raising the fourth to the fifth power. What you do is multiply them. Okay. All right, so for room, let me do this one over here, number 8. 8 x cubed y to the negative fifth squared. All right, so this one, you have three bases, an 8, an x, and a y. So separate them. Say, all right, I want to raise the 8 to the second power, the x to the third to the second power, and the y to the negative fifth to the second power. Okay, separate them all, three bases. All right, well, 8 squared is 64. Okay, here, when one exponent is outside the parentheses, power to power, you're going to multiply them. So you get x to the sixth. Same thing here. When it's outside, you're going to multiply. You would get y to the negative 10. Now, is that answer okay? No. I can't have a negative exponent. So right now, this whole thing is over 1. So let's fix it. Who has the negative exponent? The y. So this needs to move to the bottom. Everybody else can stay at the top. So move that y to the 10th to the bottom. And then our last rule is our quotient of powers. It's saying what did you do if you have a fraction raised to a power. So let me make that one bigger. That says x to the fifth. My fraction is x to the fifth over y squared, and I'm going to raise it to the negative 3. So if you have a fraction raised to power, you're going to split it up. You're going to give the top that power and the bottom that power. And then we just learned, okay, what do you do with your exponents when it's outside the parentheses? You're going to multiply them. So you get x to the negative 15 and you get y to the negative 6. Okay. Now, is that answer okay? No. You got to fix those negative exponents. So this one needs to go to the bottom. And this one needs to go to the top. So what you're going to end up doing is flipping them to fix it. Okay, so there are your individual rules. Let's do the last four. We kind of put those rules together. Okay. All right, so let's look at number 10. I got 10x to the fifth over negative 2x to the sixth. Divide out your numbers first. What's 10 divided by negative 2? Negative 5. And what you want to do is subtract your exponents. So you've got to simplify that. So that's negative 5x to what power? Negative 1. Okay, now, negative numbers are fine, but negative exponents are not okay. So this has to move to the bottom. And a lot of times I get the question of why don't I move the 5? Well, the 5, remember, the exponent on the 5 is a positive 1. The negative 5 is a positive 1. You don't move it unless they're negative. So you can leave that negative 5 where he is, but that x has to drop to the bottom. Okay. All right, you're going to see this next one definitely on midterm and final, so you want to be careful with it. Anytime you've got those parentheses you're multiplying, but one's got a power, you got to fix that power first. So I'm going to leave that 4a squared alone. But here, I need to take everybody in there to the third power. So, negative 2 cubed, okay, would be negative 2 times negative 2 times negative 2. So that would give me a negative 8. And this one, remember, when one's outside the parentheses, multiply them up so you get a to the 12th. Alright, and so now let's multiply what we can. So I can multiply 4 times a negative 8 and get a negative 32. And then I can put the a's together. Well, a squared times a to the 12th. Remember, you add them. Okay, you would get a to the 14th. Alright. Anytime you have one like this, a parenthesis, you want to simplify inside first. Okay, so let's do the inside. What is negative 30 divided by 10? That would be negative 3. And then when we're dividing, we subtract. So we have a to the 14 minus 17, and we have b to the 8 minus what? A negative 2. Good. Be careful with those negatives and double them up. It's top one minus the bottom one. So it's 8 minus a negative 2. Alright, so that would be a to the negative 3, b to the, those two negatives make a plus, so it would be b to the 10th. And now you can separate it all out. You got negative 3 to the third, a to the negative 3 to the third. You know what? I should probably write that one line down so I have room. Alright, so negative 3 to the third, a to the negative 3 to the third, and b to the 10th to the third. So negative 3 to the third is negative 3 times negative 3 to negative 3, so negative 27. You get a to the negative 9, b to the 30, because remember, we're multiplying them up when one's outside the other. And the only negative exponent you have is that a to the 9th, which has to drop to the bottom. Okay, always fix your negative exponent. So the only one that had a negative exponent was that a. Alright, this one's a little bit easier. Divide out your numbers. What's a negative 24 divided by negative 8 would be a 3. Alright, so let's subtract these. Okay, so we have a to the top one minus the bottom one, so 2 minus a negative 5. B to the negative 2 minus a negative 1. And C to the 8 minus a negative 3. Alright, so that changes to 2 plus 5, or a to the 7th. Alright, this changes to negative 2 plus 1, so we get negative 1. And this changes to 8 plus 3, or 11. And the only thing that's wrong with this is that negative exponent, so that b has to drop to the bottom. So leave the 3, a to the 7th, c to the 11th, drop that b to the first power to the bottom. Okay, so go try your homework.